From economic shifts to political turmoil, the world is changing rapidly. But what if there's a way to anticipate these changes and even prepare for what comes next? The fourth turning theory might just hold the key. It's not magic, it's not conspiracy, it is a generational pattern drawn from centuries of history, and it speaks directly to the moment we're living in. I'm Dan, and today we're diving deep into the most important theory you may have never heard of. One that might just help you make better decisions for yourself and your family and your future. Let's start with the basics. The fourth turning is a generational theory introduced by historians William Strauss and Neil Howe, first in their 1991 book Generations, and then in The Fourth Turning, An American Prophecy, published in 1997. At its core, the theory proposes that history moves in cycles, like seasons. Each cycle, called a saeculum, lasts about 80 to 100 years, roughly the length of a long human life. And that cycle is made up of 4 turnings, each lasting around 20 to 25 years, though this length can vary. Let's break them down. The first turning is a high, a time of strong institutions and national unity. Think post-World War II era in the US, and the 1950s and the early 60s. The second turning is an awakening, a period when people begin to challenge established order in the name of personal and spiritual freedom. This aligns with the social revolutions of the 1960s and 70s. And then comes the third turning, which is an unraveling. Institutions weaken, trust erodes, and individualism peaks. That's the 1980s through the early 2000s. And finally, the fourth turning, the crisis, a period when society faces a fundamental breakdown of institutions and must either reinvent or collapse. Historical fourth turnings in the United States include the American Revolution, the Civil War, and then, this is quite a pair coupled together into one fourth turning, the Great Depression and World War II. It's quite a stretch of 17 years or so. According to Strauss and Howe, the current fourth turning began around 2008, marked by the global financial crisis, and if the pattern holds, we're likely approaching the climax sometime later this decade, potentially 2028 to 2032. It's a big claim, and not without controversy. Critics argue the theory is overly deterministic, lacks empirical rigor, and can't be falsified, making it more of a storytelling framework than a scientific model. And some have even called it pseudoscience or intellectualized prophecy. And that's a fair thing to note. But here's why it's resonating. It matches what a lot of people feel right now, that something fundamental is shifting, and we're living through the end of an age. So how does this theory apply to our world right now? Well, let's look at the key signs Strauss and Howe predicted would define a fourth turning and compare them to today. Collapse of trust in institutions. Surveys show that Americans' trust in Congress, media, the Supreme Court, even democracy itself has declined dramatically since the early 2000s. Rising political polarization. The U.S. is more divided along party lines than at any point since the Civil War. And compromise is rare. Gridlock is common. And violence and extremism are rising. Economic volatility. From 2008 to COVID to inflation and debt crises, the economy feels unstable, and the wealth gap is wider than ever. Technological disruption. Artificial intelligence and automation and surveillance tech and social media are transforming how we work and think and relate, and it's doing so faster than our institutions can adapt. global conflict and realignment, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, tensions around Taiwan, unrest in the Middle East. These are not isolated flare-ups. They point to a reordering of the global balance of power. Climate crisis and natural disasters, droughts, wildfires, floods, and extreme weather events are pushing ecosystems and social systems to the brink. These are all classic hallmarks of a society in the midst of a fourth turning. Now add in demographics. Millennials, the largest generation in U.S. history, are entering middle age. Gen Z is rising behind them, and baby boomers, many still in power, are aging out. Every fourth turning involves a generational handoff, and that's exactly what's happening now. It's worth noting that this theory has found some surprising followers in high places. Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Trump, is an outspoken proponent. He even produced a film in 2010 called Generation Zero, based on the theory. There are reports that parts of the Trump administration were shaped with fourth turning logic in mind, especially the idea that institutions must be dismantled to usher in a rebirth. And more recently, the financial world has taken notice. In 2025, the Wall Street Journal article noted that hedge funds, gold investors, and even Neil Howe himself are building financial strategies around this theory. Howe now offers consulting services and market-based insights based on fourth-turning patterns. That alone should at least raise some eyebrows. So what can you do with all this? How do we prepare? Not just to survive a fourth turning, but to grow through it. Here are a few practical ideas. First of all, build resilience, not just in terms of food or finances, though those are important. Think skills and relationships. Learn to grow your own food, to fix things that are broken, to support your local economy. Second, strengthen community. Fourth turnings can isolate us, but they also create space for deeper connection. Rebuild local ties and start or join mutual aid groups. Foster intergenerational friendships. Third, know your history. Understanding past turnings reduces fear, so read widely. Learn how people navigated the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression. You'll start to see the patterns and the possibilities. Fourth, stay flexible. Don't get too attached to old systems. The job market, the political order, even the way we communicate, everything is shifting. Flexibility isn't just a virtue, it is survival. And fifth, think long term. Fourth turnings don't end overnight, unfortunately. If this one began in 2008, we may not see resolution until the early 2030s. It might come sooner, but plan for it to not. It's a long arc, so pace yourself and build for the future. Here's the key insight. The fourth turning isn't a prophecy. It's a possibility, a lens through which to understand recurring patterns in history. But the outcome, that's still up to us. Yes, turnings bring danger, but they also bring renewal. Remember the last fourth turning? It gave us the New Deal, the GI Bill, the United Nations, and a middle-class boom. It also involved deep pain, depression, genocide, and world war. What follows a fourth turning depends on how we respond to the crisis. Will we choose authoritarianism or community? Will we collapse or transform? Will we hoard or share? Will we let fear divide us or let it teach us to lead with wisdom? The road ahead will be shaped by leadership, not just in government, but in families, in neighborhoods, in schools, and businesses, and faith communities. It'll be shaped by young people with vision and elders who are willing to mentor, rather than cling to power. It will be shaped, above all, by ordinary people, choosing to act with courage and compassion, even when the future feels unclear. Because the future isn't fixed. We're writing it together, right now. Well, if this resonated with you, if something in your gut says, yes, I've felt this too, then take the next step. Start where you are, in your family, in your town, in your workplace. Find something to build, repair, or heal. Educate yourself and learn the signs of the times that we're in. I'll link to some excellent resources in the description below, like The Fourth Turning and The Fourth Turning is Here by Neil Howe, Peter Cherkin's work on historical cycles, and Generation Zero, that 2010 documentary, and interviews and discussions on generational theory and crisis leadership. And if you found this video useful, please like it, share it, comment, subscribe. Help more people think clearly about where we are and where we're going. Because even in the middle of a storm, even in the chaos of a fourth turning, there's always a dawn. Somewhere on the other side. We just have to build toward it together.